fun begins.
How's it going?
Hello.
Well,
Greetings, young Jedi.
hello there.
Hey everyone, Hybrid Toy Reviews here, and today we are going to do another one of my figure ranking videos. Today we are going to be ranking all 18 figures they have made so far as of September 2025 for Star Wars The Bad Batch. An excellent show, a really fun follow-up to the Clone Wars, something that I do love very much. Second season, yeah, it dragged a little bit in places, but overall, I think it's a pretty solid show, and if you haven't watched it yet, you absolutely should. If you're a Clone Wars fan, this will definitely scratch some familiar itches for you. Now, when it comes to the figures from this show, I gotta be honest, this list was hard, kind of like I've said on some of these other ones, except for different reasons. You know, Book of Boba Fett, hard because all 10 of those figures are pretty good figures, and it's kind of hard to say what's better than others. And the Ahsoka series, outside of a couple of them that are bad, like, there's like, 20 figures there or whatever, like, 4 of them weren't great, and the rest of them were. Whereas when we get to the Bad Batch, there's a lot of reuse and a lot of repaints and a lot of really tight budget things. It really feels like this show didn't get the figure budget that any other show got, and I could completely see that. I could see them just saying, like, it's animated, don't worry about it, it doesn't need the same budget as a season of The Mandalorian gets, and that's sad, because a lot of these figures are characters I really like, and I wish they had better representations on the shelf. So I'm not going to super harp on it here. Just kind of my logic. This list is hard because until you get to the top, few, most of these are kind of just mid. So let's get into it and see how I rank the Bad Batch. Starting off in spot number 18 is Captain Rex. An amazing character and a figure that I wish was so much better. This figure is reuse from that Dog Water 2017 Captain Rex, one of the worst clone figures in the line, in my opinion, and it's not helped much here. He was based on some concept art, so he comes with some binoculars that he doesn't wear in the show. The soft goods cape cloak, I actually kind of like that. And it's just Captain Rex with the wrong pauldron underneath, and it's just not a great base body. I think that when this came out, the idea of anything coming out on that 2013 clone body, I don't care that in 17 they gave it slightly better elbows. It's still a garbage base body, and there's just no way that anything on this body could be worse than anything else. I think that 2013 mold needs to be obliterated. If Hasbro ever uses it again, I'm marching on Rhode Island. Or I guess New Jersey. Didn't they move to New Jersey? In spot number 17 is Imperial Crosshair. This figure really suffered from just heavy reuse from inaccurate pieces. They basically just took the Bad Batch Crosshair, gave him the right helmet. Thankfully, they didn't just paint the old one black. It wouldn't have shocked me, because everything else is the old figure painted black. He doesn't have that bar on his shoulder pad, and I'm going to say it on anything that reuses the Hunter mold, and I generally like the Hunter mold, but remolding the left arm to not have the socket for Hunter's knife would have paid for itself a million times over with how many times they've reused that sculpt. So it just super sucks that, they just cut corners and made it as cheap as possible on a figure that really should have been better. And it's kind of also just an episode 1 Crosshair at that point too, because he has, just the same old head sculpt underneath the helmet. I wish they would have given us the bald, burned up one that he got in episode 7, and then he looked like that for the rest of the show. But alas, we did not. In spot number 16 is Admiral Rampart, and ultimately, this figure isn't necessarily bad, it's just a bit of a nothing burger. This is a case of them adapting an animated character to live action, and Rampart is just a white dude with short brown hair, and we're nothing special, that's what I am, and it's just an Imperial officer. We've seen it a million times before. It's not exciting. Was cool to get a pack-in mouse droid, I will say. When Walmart marked them down to $5, I bought many a Rampart for those mouse droids. But yeah, just kind of a figure. Nothing wrong with it, just not exciting. In spot number 15 is the Elite Squad Trooper, and this is one that I actually think is a somewhat cool figure. I don't really like the reuse of the 2013 Clone Trooper legs, although the legs are not the worst part of that figure. It was just bizarre that they decided to Frankenstein the two clone molds together for some reason. At least they used the right half, for the arms, which matters more. But it's just kind of a weird Frankenstein figure. And, we don't see these guys too often, a couple times in season one. And they had a lot of unique weapons, and they just give you that Clone Trooper, DC 15, just short rifle, and it's just kind of eh. Like, it's cool. I bought 4 of it, but there's just a lot cooler on this list. In spot number 14 is the Clone Commando. Now, a hot take, I don't mind the Clone Commandos being slimmed down in figure form, so that's going to get me some dislikes already, I know. But I don't have any problem for the proportions of the figure. I don't think they would ever be as bulky as Republic Commando made them in '04 anyway. But he's a weird, dingy, off-white color. He's not even like solid white. They gave him the wrong gun. Now, while the Commando Blaster, I feel, should definitely be in the box, in the show, you only ever see him use the Clone Trooper DC-15, so I think they should have put both in the box. And again, that reuse of the Hunter forearm with the big gaping hole in the bottom of it for the knife, just, again, would have paid for itself many times over to be remolded. So, cheap Hasbro. And otherwise, I generally like what we got here. Just have a couple of gripes. In spot number 13 is Bad Batch Crosshair. And, objectively, it's a figure that I generally like. Again, he has that hole in the forearm because they wouldn't remold the forearm. And yeah, I just, Crosshair's just a figure that articulates fine and looks fine and is like a decent sculpt, I guess. Just, ultimately, the forearm thing bugs me, and I think everything above is just slightly better. We're starting to get to the end of the list where there's not like anything majorly wrong of anything, and we start getting into a little bit of preference territory from here, and I just think a lot of the other figures were better than Crosshair. In spot number 12, I have Echo in his mercenary gear. This is the season 2 look, and I'm going to be honest, when it comes to the mercenary gear looks, Echo doesn't really have a lot of change from season 1 to 2, other than just kind of adding like the tan comma and stuff. And I think Echo's objectively a fine figure. Season 1 actually ranks fairly high, stay tuned. It's just kind of a figure where I'm like, it's neat. And that's kind of it. It's not my most favorite of the season 2 redecos. It's just not bad either. In spot number 11 is Omega as she appears in the very first episode in her Camino outfit. This figure is actually pretty fun, and for the size, it has some good articulation, and I liked that Hasbro tried to fill the box for once, giving her the gas mask and the little lizard dog and the bow. The bow is a little bit frustrating just because it is so ginormous, and it is big for her in the show, but she really struggles to like actually hold it in a pointing position. They rectify that later. Again, stay tuned. And ultimately, because she loses that headdress crown thing like immediately, I just wish that we got a second head that reflected the rest of season 1 after the first episode. So it's a pretty good figure otherwise, though. Really not a lot to say bad. In spot number 10, we have Hunter as he appears in season 1. This is generally a fine figure, and I think it's the only figure that's acceptable to have the forearm with the port for the knife, so I'm not going to knock that here. I generally like the paint. I like the scratching that's got all over. This armor's definitely been through some battles. My general rule of Clone Troopers is when they have removable helmets, I usually just leave them on anyway because I don't want them off duty. The Bad Batch would probably have been the one exception to that rule, because they're so individual that I think they would look cool squatted up with the helmets off. Except for Hunter, they decided that he wasn't a clone of Jango Fett. They decided to make his likeness that of Taylor Lautner, and I just don't need a clone trooper on the shelf that's ready to wolf out to fight for Bella's right to remain human. So, just not a fan of that face sculpt. In spot number 9 is the slightly better Hunter in mercenary gear. I like the season 2 appearance of Hunter better. I like the scarf. I like the blue and the light tan coloring. It's just a really good looking figure. The two parts they reused were the helmet and the head, and the helmet's good and the head is not. So again, with that Taylor Lautner likeness. So I'll just leave the helmet on. I generally do like this look of the character more. So yeah, I like this one a good deal. In spot number 8 is the Imperial Clone Shock Trooper. Now, this is the Shock Trooper with the red pauldron. It was a Walmart exclusive. It's on the Clone Trooper 2.0 body, which I know some people despise. I'm a bit of an apologist. I know it's not the best, and the 3.0 absolutely is an upgrade. But remember the times. Remember the times. They could have put it on that god-awful 2013 clone body. The articulation is fine. It recreates what you see in the show pretty well. Sucks they glued that pauldron down. I just bought a couple extra and just peeled the pauldrons off anyway and just did my best to scrape off the glue on the shoulders. But yeah, it was fine. It was a fun figure, and if memory serves, it even got kind of cheap on Walmart. I feel like I got a couple of them for like really cheap. So it's just a fun figure. In spot number 7 is Tech in his Bad Batch outfit. Now, they do a pretty good job of recreating the Bad Batch version of Tech, but you really get into the issues up at the helmet. They decided the unmasked head sculpt didn't need his goggles, which the goggles only come off once he's deceased, and the goggles stay on his head when he takes his helmet off. They elected to just sculpt them to the removable helmet, and then they didn't even give him clear lenses. Like, come on, guys, really? So it just had some weird, quirky stuffs there. Otherwise, from the neck down, I actually think it's a pretty good sculpt, and I don't really have a lot of bad to say about it. Tech is a pretty fun figure, one of the better ones. In spot number 6 is Wrecker. Now, Wrecker released as a deluxe. Some people didn't think he was worth it. I generally do. He's big, he's bulky, he's got some fun, like paint apps. I like his knife. He came with the Commando Blaster, which was just a little bit too big. But it was a fun figure. It had some great articulation. I liked the head underneath the helmet, but I also liked that the helmet was a slightly snug fit, so you could put it on the head, like how he wears it like a hat sometimes before he drops it on. Just great stuff here. I do really like the gray, Bad Batch Season 1 Wrecker. In spot number 5, some familiar territory with Wrecker again, but in his mercenary gear. Now, Hasbro decided to treat us, since it's a reuse, and not make it deluxe that time. They rang up for $27.99 at Walmart, just like everyone else did, and that was A-okay with me. He had a lot more, colorful additions to his armor. They scaled his blaster down just a smidge, made it just right, and the boot knife is as cool as ever. Just a lot of really fun stuff going on here. I do like this Wrecker just a little bit more than the Season 1 version, so it's just a fun figure. In spot number 4 is Echo in his gray Bad Batch gear from the first season, and this is a really cool figure. He has some great articulation. I love the emaciated Tamura Morrison likeness underneath that helmet. Very pale, very nice. I like how they made the helmet work, leaving his kind of Lobot, half dome around back, and then you kind of unpeg the helmet underneath it and pull it around. The helmet worked out very well. I know it took him a little longer because that was a tricky design. I love everything about this. It's a really fun figure. I can't gripe about anything. Something from concept art even made its way in, a little attachable claw arm for the droid port arm. Of course, it never quite made it to the show, but it is nice getting another accessory. I don't mind when accessories from concept art pop up here and there. It's when a figure is just too based on concept art that got changed and therefore is woefully inaccurate. That's where the concept art thing bugs me. But if you want to give me an additional accessory I can just choose to not use, sometimes that's fun. In spot number 3, I have Omega in her mercenary gear, and this one is an improvement drastically over the Season 1 Omega. Again, Season 1 Omega was fine. This Omega has a slightly scaled down bow, so it's a little bit easier to get her in some drawn back positions. It also comes with a collapsed bow, because it does fold up for back storage, and that works really, really well. What a treat. And then she comes with 2 heads, because she has a hat, and it's a big hat that covers the sides of her head, so you know, you could either have the hat be giant or you could have two heads. And so they went the two heads route, and both of the heads look really good. I just really like everything about this one. Mercenary Gear Omega is just a great figure, one of the best in the line. In spot number 2, I have Tech in his mercenary gear. So this is a rework, and a lot of the mercenary gear versions of the batch are just the original figure with some paint, maybe a swap here and there. Hunter had a lot of stuff going on. Tech has a lot of repaint going on, that is fair, but my big gripe being the helmet and the goggles were rectified here. They made the goggles a part of the helmet. They made the helmet slip on over the head and goggles. It's a little fiddly, but it works, and it works well, and I love everything about it. This figure has great articulation, a really good likeness, everything you could want, coming with the pistol and the wrenches and stuff on his belt. I like this figure a great deal. Rest in peace, Tech, best member of the Bad Batch. Just a great figure. What a fitting figure for for such a legendary character. And in spot number 1, I don't know who told Hasbro to cook so hard on a one-episode appearance Cad Bane, but Cad Bane in his Bracca gear is the number 1 Bad Batch figure for me. Now, it reuses a couple pieces from the Clone Wars Cad Bane, which is an excellent figure, but they went really hard on him. They gave him that really cool silver chest armor, and it's just a really cool figure. There's nothing bad to say whatsoever. Anything that you could want from this figure, he comes with. He has great articulation. He has great paint. This is just an excellent Cad Bane figure. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This figure there's nothing bad to say. It's not even a figure, like, if I wanted to, like, make this list based on, like, what character's coolest, what character's most importantest, like, and the Bad Batch, Cad Bane would be kind of low on the list on, like, he just kind of, like, he caught Omega briefly, and then, you know, just whatever, she got away. But, like, as far as, like, just quality of an action figure, he makes for an excellent action figure. They did everything right that I want on a Star Wars action figure here. So, yeah, Bracca Cad Bane is my number 1 in the Bad Batch line. So that is my ranking of the Black Series Bad Batch. I'm gonna be honest, a whole chunk of the middle could honestly be interchangeable because there are just a lot of figures with a lot of issues, and you got to decide what's better, what's worse. So let's talk about it. I feel this one could be a very, like, decisive conversation. So let's keep it civil. Let's keep it cool. These are just toys at the end of the day. But, yeah, I think the Bad Batch, unfortunately, has a lot of figures that suffer from mid, and I don't like saying that because it's a really fun show, but they really cut corners on a lot of these, and it just sucks, and I hope we get some more figures from the show down the road. Hasbro's quality is getting better by the day, so hopefully Bad Batch isn't off the table now that it's not airing anymore, because it is still a very fun show, and there are some gaps missing from my Bad Batch shelf. But yeah, let's talk about it down in the comments below. What is your favorite Bad Batch figure? There's 18, and a lot of them are just okay, but there are some bangers on this list. So let's talk about it. I will catch you all next time. May the Force be with each and every one of you, and have a great day.